The cruiser's spotlight pinned Marcus Reed like a nail to a board. Rain sheeted across the empty two-lane highway, turning the asphalt into black glass. Pines crowded the shoulder, their trunks slick and unmoving. The only other light came from the red and blue strobes that pulsed against the trees like an alarm in a dream. Marcus stood beside his sedan with his hands raised, palms open, fingers spread exactly as he'd been told. His jacket clung to him, a laminated veteran ID, still on a lanyard from the VA clinic earlier that day, swung against his chest with each gust of wind. "Don't you move," the officer shouted, voice sharp and excited, like a man who'd been waiting for permission. "You hear me? Don't move." Officer Daniel Kessler, late 30s, broad shoulders stretched under a soaked patrol jacket. His pistol was out already, both hands on it, muzzle locked on Marcus's sternum. The gun looked too casual in his grip, like it belonged there. Marcus's eyes held steady. His breath came slow, measured. He didn't look at the gun. He looked at Kessler's face. "Officer," Marcus said, calm enough to sound unreal. "I'm complying. My hands are up." Kessler took a step closer, boots splashing, gun unwavering. "You got attitude, that's what you got." "I have my hands up," Marcus repeated. "Tell me what you want." "What I want," Kessler said, voice rising, "is for you to stop acting like you're in charge." The dashcam's red record light blinked inside the cruiser. The body camera on Kessler's chest stared forward, its tiny lens catching the rain in bright beads. Kessler didn't look at either. He looked at Marcus like Marcus was a problem he could finally solve. "You know why I pulled you over?" Kessler asked. "No, sir." Kessler's mouth twitched. "Because you fit." "Fit what?" Kessler's eyes slid over Marcus's face, then down to the sedan, an older model. Clean, no visible damage. A temporary plate taped inside the rear window from a recent purchase. Kessler's lip curled. "You driving through here at this hour?" he said. "In that car, with those hands, wearing that jacket. Yeah, you fit." Marcus swallowed once. The rain ran off his jawline. "What's your name?" Kessler demanded. "Marcus Reed." Kessler repeated it like it tasted wrong. "Marcus Reed, step back. Back. Keep your hands high." Marcus stepped backward, heel finding the slick shoulder. His boot slipped slightly, he corrected without flinching. Kessler's finger tightened on the trigger, just enough to show it. "Don't stumble," Kessler hissed. "Don't you do that. That's how people get hurt." Marcus's eyes flickered to the gun, now only for a heartbeat, then back to Kessler. "I'm not reaching," Marcus said. "I'm not running." Kessler snorted. "No, you're gonna talk. That's what you're gonna do." Kessler's radio crackled faintly from his shoulder mic, dispatch asking for status. Kessler ignored it. He angled his head like he was listening to something else, something only he could hear. "You got weapons?" he asked. "No, sir." "You got drugs?" "No." "You got warrants?" "No." Kessler's gaze dropped to the veteran ID swinging on Marcus's chest. He stepped in close enough that the gun's front sight lined up with the ID card. "What's that?" Kessler asked. "A veteran ID," Marcus said. Kessler's laugh snapped out, short and ugly. "A veteran? Sure." Marcus didn't answer. Kessler leaned forward, rain dripping from the brim of his cap. "You people love costumes, love paperwork, love acting like you belong." Marcus's jaw flexed. His hand stayed up. "Watch your mouth," Marcus said quietly. Kessler's eyes widened, delighted. "There it is. There's the threat." "It's not a threat," Marcus said. "It's a request." Kessler's gun didn't move, but his posture changed. He shifted his weight like a man preparing to pounce. "Turn around," Kessler ordered. "Hands on the trunk. Spread your legs." Marcus hesitated, not because he wouldn't comply, because the trunk was slick with rain, and turning his back to a drawn weapon was a kind of surrender that did something deep inside him, something trained into muscle and bone. Kessler saw the hesitation and took it personally. "You refuse my lawful order," he said, loud enough for the dash cam to hear it clean. "That's resisting." "I didn't refuse," Marcus said. On turning, he turned slowly, deliberately, and placed his hands on the trunk. His fingers splayed against cold metal. Rainwater pooled under his palms. Kessler closed the distance in quick steps, gun still out, now angled slightly down as he approached. "You move wrong," Kessler said near Marcus's ear, "and I'll put you down and I won't lose sleep." Marcus kept his eyes on the darkness beyond the tree line. He could hear Kessler's breathing fast, excited. He could smell coffee and tobacco on him, sharp through the rain. Kessler shoved Marcus's shoulder. Hard. Marcus absorbed it without falling. "Oh," Kessler whispered, almost admiring. "You tough." Kessler holstered his gun with a practiced motion that didn't match the recklessness of having drawn it so early. Then he yanked Marcus's wrists behind him and snapped cuffs on too tight, the metal biting immediately. Marcus's breath hitched. "Too tight," Marcus said. "Good," Kessler said. "That way you remember who's in control." Kessler pushed Marcus forward, chest to trunk, the cuffs grinding into bone. Marcus's face tightened, but he made no sound. Kessler stepped back and stared at the car like it offended him. Then he reached for the driver's door handle. "Do not search my vehicle without probable cause," Marcus said, voice strained. "But even." Kessler paused, slowly turned his head. His eyes were flat now. "Listen," Kessler said. "You don't get to quote law at me. You don't get to tell me how to do my job. You're lucky I'm being nice." "You pulled a gun on me," Marcus said. Kessler's mouth twisted. "You made me." Marcus stared ahead. He didn't answer that. Kessler opened the driver's door and leaned in, rummaging with theatrical force. He tossed a folded umbrella into the wet grass, a bottle of water, a canvas bag. Then he found a small, hard case beneath the seat. Kessler held it up. "What's this?" "A medical kit," Marcus said. Kessler opened it, peering inside. Bandages, gauze, tourniquet, Israeli pressure dressing, sealed packets of hemostatic gauze. Kessler looked impressed despite himself, then suspicious again. "Why you got this?" he demanded. "Because I've used it," Marcus said. Kessler stared at the tourniquet like it was a weapon. "You one of those guys," Kessler muttered. "One of those wannabe soldiers." "I am a soldier," Marcus said softly. "Or I was." Kessler slammed the kit shut and threw it onto the passenger seat. He reached into the center console and pulled out a file folder thick, worn with a VA seal. Marcus's chest tightened. Kessler flipped it open. Rain hitting the papers. He didn't care. He read just enough to see the words printed in block letters. Kessler's eyes narrowed. "PTSD," he said loudly. "Oh, this is good." "This is real good." "That's medical," Marcus said. "Close it." Kessler held the folder up like evidence to an invisible jury. "So you're unstable. You're dangerous. You could snap at any moment." "I'm not unstable," Marcus said. Kessler's grin returned. "But you could be." Kessler stepped closer again, so close Marcus could feel the officer's breath near his ear. "You know what happens when someone like you snaps?" Kessler whispered. "People die. And then I'm a hero. You understand that?" Marcus's hands flexed in the cuffs, a controlled tremor. "Dispatch," Kessler finally said into his radio, voice suddenly professional. "I've got one detained, requesting backup for a possible DUI and narcotics investigation." Marcus turned his head slightly. "I'm not intoxicated." Kessler shoved him again. Quiet. Minutes stretched. Rain hammered the roof of the sedan. Marcus's wrists burned, numbness creeping into his fingers. Kessler prowled around the car, searching slower now, dragging it out. Each item he handled was another reminder. The officer could do almost anything here, and the trees would witness, but never testify. Headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the rain like a blade. Another cruiser approached, slowed, pulled in behind Kessler's with a splash of water. Officer Jenna Morales stepped out, younger, tired eyes. Her hand hovered near her holster but didn't draw. She took one look at Marcus cuffed against the trunk and then at Kessler's posture too puffed up, too aggressive, and something tightened in her face. "What's going on, Dan?" Morales asked, keeping her voice controlled. Kessler didn't look at Marcus. He looked at Morales like she'd interrupted his performance. "Pulled him for a lane violation," Kessler said. "He's mouthy. Possible DUI, possible narcotics." Morales looked at Marcus. "Sir, can you tell me what happened?" Kessler snapped his head toward her. "He doesn't talk unless I say he talks." Morales held Kessler's stare. "He's handcuffed, Dan. Let him answer a question." Kessler's jaw clenched. "Fine. Talk." Marcus's voice came out steady despite the pain. "I was driving home from the VA clinic. He pulled me over, drew his weapon immediately, cuffed me, searched my car, opened my medical paperwork." Morales' eyes flicked to the wet folder on the passenger seat, then back to Kessler. Why'd you draw? Morales asked. Kessler scoffed. Because he was acting suspicious. How? He was driving, Kessler snapped, then caught himself. He was driving weird. Hands were moving. I didn't like it. Morales' gaze lingered on Marcus's veteran ID. You served? Yes, Marcus said. Kessler barked a laugh. He says. Morales' tone sharpened. Dan. Kessler's face darkened. Don't start. Morales stepped closer to Marcus, careful not to crowd him. Sir, where were you stationed? Marcus hesitated just a fraction, not because he didn't know, because the answer was a door. Fort Bragg, he said. Then overseas. Morales nodded slowly. What unit? Marcus's eyes stayed forward. I'd rather not discuss operational details on this side of the road. Kessler's laugh was louder this time. Operational details, listen to this guy. Morales didn't laugh. She studied Marcus's posture, the way he held pain without displaying it, the way his breathing stayed controlled, the way his eyes didn't dart like a man who feared consequences. He feared the officer's next whim, not guilt. Morales spoke carefully. Do you have your driver's license on you? In my wallet, Marcus said. Back right pocket. Kessler stepped in immediately. I'll get it. Morales held up a hand. I will. Kessler's eyes flashed. You don't trust me? Morales' voice dropped, meant for him alone. I don't trust this stop. Kessler's nostrils flared. He stepped back, arms crossing. Morales reached gently into Marcus's pocket, pulled out the wallet, and extracted the license. Her eyes scanned it. Then she looked at Marcus again, a subtle shift in her expression like she'd just seen a shadow move where it shouldn't. She turned the license slightly so Kessler could see. Dan. Kessler leaned in, squinting. His grin faltered. The name read Marcus J. Reed. The address was in Arlington, Virginia, an apartment complex not far from the Pentagon corridor. The photo matched, but the small notation on the bottom corner wasn't typical. Morales read it silently. Her thumb covered it instinctively, then moved away. Kessler's eyes caught it. His face tightened. What's that? He demanded. Morales didn't answer immediately. She handed the license back to Marcus, then looked at Kessler with a quiet warning in her eyes. It's nothing, Kessler said too quickly to convince himself. It's just whatever. Still mouthy. Marcus's wrists throbbed. His fingers had begun to tingle in that dangerous way, nerves waking up wrong. Officer Morales, Marcus said, voice low, my cuffs are cutting off circulation. Morales stepped toward Kessler. Dan, loosen them. Kessler didn't move. He's fine. Morales' patience thinned. Loosen them. Kessler's gaze locked onto hers, and for a moment the rain seemed to hush. The air held the electric tension of authority clashing with ego. Kessler leaned toward Morales and spoke in a voice meant to humiliate. You gonna take his side because he's… what? Because he's like you? You want to be his little savior? Morales' face went still. Her eyes hardened. Marcus heard it. The raw, ugly implication. The old poison said out loud, because Kessler believed the road belonged to him. Morales stepped back, drawing a slow breath. Dan, take the cuffs off. Now. Kessler's smile returned, thin as wire. Or what? Morales' hand drifted to her radio. Or I call a supervisor. Kessler's eyes flashed. You do that, and I'll write you up for insubordination. I'm the senior officer here. Morales didn't blink. Not on paper. Kessler stepped toward Marcus again, as if to reassert control by proximity. He leaned into Marcus's ear. You hear that? He whispered. You got her twisted. That's what you people do. You twist. Marcus's voice stayed calm. You're being recorded. Kessler froze. Then his eyes flicked to the tiny bodycam lens on his chest, to the dashcam blinking red inside the cruiser, to Morales' camera as well. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Then he covered it with anger. You think you're smart, Kessler said loud enough for the microphones. You think you can threaten me with cameras. I'm stating a fact, Marcus said. Kessler's hand went back to his gun. Morales snapped. Dan, Kessler paused, gun half drawn, then slowly let it rest in the holster again, a show of restraint for the cameras. But his face was twisted with resentment. Morales stepped between them. That's enough. Kessler's eyes burned into her. Get out of my way. Morales didn't move. No. The rain continued to fall. The road stayed empty. The pines stood like jurors. Marcus watched Morales' stance. Balanced. Ready. The tension wasn't just professional now, it was survival. Kessler leaned closer, voice low. You want to protect him so bad? Fine. You can babysit him while I find what he's hiding. He turned and went back to the sedan, rifling again harder, sloppier. He pulled out Marcus's phone from the cuff holder, held it up. What's the passcode? Kessler demanded. You don't have a warrant, Marcus said. Kessler's eyes narrowed. I don't need one if you give consent. I don't consent. Kessler stepped toward Marcus, phone in hand like a weapon. Then I'll take you in. Impound your car. We'll see how long you hold on to your little rights in a cell. Morales' voice cut in, sharp. Dan, you can't search his phone without a warrant. You know that. Kessler turned on her. Shut up. Morales didn't flinch. Put the phone back. Kessler stepped close to Morales now, face inches from hers. You're really gonna do this? Over him? Morales' jaw worked. Over the law. Kessler's smile returned, but it was brittle. The law. Right. He slammed the phone onto the trunk near Marcus's hands, the vibration rattling through the metal into Marcus's palms. Call whoever you want, Kessler said to Marcus, voice dripping. Let's see who picks up for you. Marcus stared at the phone. His hands were cuffed behind him. He couldn't reach it. Morales noticed. Quietly, she slid the phone closer to the edge of the trunk, closer to Marcus's reach if he could shift, but still impossible with cuffs. Marcus didn't move. He didn't need to. He lifted his chin slightly and spoke, not to Kessler, not to Morales, but to the night as if it were a direct line. My name is Marcus James Reed, he said evenly. Service number, Kessler barked a laugh. Oh my God, he's reciting a script, Marcus continued. And I'm requesting immediate supervisory response and federal notification due to an officer brandishing a weapon without cause and violating protected information. Morales' eyes widened just a fraction. Federal notification? Kessler's face hardened. You think you can just say words and scare me? Marcus's gaze shifted to Kessler, steady as iron. Not words. Kessler took a step closer. Then what? Marcus's voice lowered. Procedures. The word hung there. Clean. Cold. Morales looked from Marcus to Kessler, then down the road, as if expecting headlights that weren't there yet. Kessler's radio crackled dispatch again, asking for update. Kessler finally answered, irritated. Dispatch, I need a supervisor, he said, then added, and run him for warrants again. Something's off. Dispatch acknowledged. Static. Rain. Kessler leaned toward Marcus and spoke softly so Morales might not hear. You got a friend in high places, he whispered. You got some Pentagon, buddy? You think that saves you on this road? Not tonight. Marcus didn't answer. Kessler's eyes narrowed, searching Marcus's face for fear. He didn't find it. He found something else. Control. Not defiance. Not bravado. The kind of control built in places where mistakes got people killed. The kind of control that didn't need to announce itself. Kessler's mouth tightened. His pride demanded escalation. Turn his head, Kessler ordered Morales abruptly. I'm doing a field sobriety test. Morales stared at him. He's handcuffed. Kessler snapped, then uncuff him, but keep him covered. Morales' voice went low. Dan, no. Kessler's eyes flashed. Do it. Morales held still, the rain running down her face. She was caught between orders and conscience, between the badge's chain of command and the reality of a man with a gun and a temper. Marcus spoke quietly. Officer Morales, do not remove these cuffs unless you're prepared to stop him. Morales looked at Marcus, understanding dawning. She nodded once. Kessler saw the exchange and misread it as conspiracy. You two whispering? He demanded. You planning something? Marcus's eyes stayed on Kessler. You're planning something. Kessler's hand twitched toward his gun again. You want to test me? No, Marcus said. I want you to stop. Kessler laughed, loud enough to sound insane in the empty rain. Stop, you hear him? He's giving me commands. Morales' voice sharpened again. Dan, step back. Kessler spun on her. Or what, you gonna arrest me? Morales didn't answer. Her hand hovered near her cuffs now. Not to restrain Marcus. To restrain Kessler if he forced it. Kessler saw it. His eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed into something dangerous. "You would," he said softly. "You would choose him over me." Morales' voice was steady. "I'm choosing the job." Kessler's laugh died. Headlights appeared again, this time faster, more aggressive. A third vehicle, unmarked, SUV silhouette, cutting through the rain with authority. It pulled behind the cruisers, brakes hissing. Doors opened quickly. Sergeant Harold Pike stepped out, heavy-set, face already annoyed. He adjusted his raincoat and approached with a hand on his belt. "What the hell is going on?" Pike demanded. Kessler snapped into performance mode immediately. "Sarge, I stopped him for a lane violation. He's uncooperative. Possible DUI. Possible narcotics. He's making threats about." Marcus turned his head slightly. "Sergeant," he said calmly, "I need your name and badge number." Pike's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me." Kessler smirked. "See? Mouthy." Morales spoke quickly, controlled but urgent. "Sergeant," he drew on him immediately. "He accessed medical paperwork. He's been escalating." Pike looked at Morales, surprised by her tone. Then he looked at Marcus' hands, cuffed, soaked, still upright. Pike's voice went hard. "You got ID?" Morales held it up. "Yes, sir. I checked it." Pike stepped closer, squinting at the license Morales offered. His eyes locked on the same notation Kessler had seen. Something changed in Pike's face. Not fear, not respect. Calculation. Pike handed it back to Morales carefully, like it could burn him. "Who are you?" Pike asked Marcus, voice lower now. Marcus's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Marcus Reed." Pike's jaw flexed. "That's not what I mean." Marcus inhaled. The rain ran down his brow into his eyes. He didn't blink it away. "Release the cuffs," Marcus said. Pike's eyes flicked to Kessler. "Dan." Kessler bristled. "Sarge," Pike cut him off. "Release the cuffs." Kessler's eyes widened. "He's detained." Pike stepped closer to Kessler, voice a growl. "Do it." Kessler's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the key. He unlocked the cuffs with rough impatience, pulling them free like he wanted to hurt Marcus one last time. Marcus brought his hands forward slowly. Deep red grooves circled his wrists. His fingers flexed, blood returning in painful waves. He turned, finally, to face them all. The veteran ID swung once, then stilled. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket, not suddenly, not provocatively. He did it with the deliberate care of a man who understood exactly how quickly a gesture could be used as an excuse. Kessler's hand flew to his gun anyway. "Don't." Kessler started. Marcus held up a small wallet, opened it, and displayed a second identification card, thicker, darker, marked with federal seals that didn't belong in a civilian's pocket. Sergeant Pike's face drained of color. Morales' eyes widened, then narrowed as she read, absorbing it. Kessler leaned forward, squinting, disbelief fighting comprehension. The card wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It carried weight like gravity. Marcus held it steady in the rain. "I'm a Department of Defense Special Investigator," Marcus said, voice quiet and absolute, "assigned to the Office of the Inspector General. I was returning from a medical appointment. You pulled a weapon on me without cause. You searched my vehicle. You accessed protected medical information. You attempted to coerce consent for an unlawful phone search." Kessler's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Pike spoke first, voice suddenly careful. "Sir, I didn't realize." Marcus's gaze never left Kessler. He realized enough. Kessler's voice cracked into life. That's fake. It has to be." Marcus didn't argue. He didn't explain. He reached down, picked up his phone from the trunk, and with numbed fingers dialed a number saved without a name. Just an initial and a star. It rang once. He put it on speaker. A voice answered immediately, clipped and alert. "Reed." "Sir," Marcus said, "I'm on Route 17 near Cedar Ridge. I've been stopped and detained by Officer Daniel Kessler, badge number." He looked at Kessler's chest, 214. "Weapon drawn. Unlawful search. Medical privacy breach. Attempted coercion. Supervisory on scene." Silence for a half second. Then the voice sharpened. "Are you safe?" "Yes," Marcus said. "For now." "Stay on the line," the voice said. "Do not engage further." Federal liaison is being dispatched. State Police Internal Affairs is being notified. Local command staff will arrive. Bodycam and dash footage are to be preserved. No one leaves. Marcus's eyes stayed on Kessler. Understood. Kessler's face was pale now, rainwater mixing with sweat. He looked at Pike like Pike could save him. Pike looked away, jaw clenched. Morales stood rigid, eyes on Kessler with a new clarity like. The fog had lifted and revealed the cliff edge. Kessler tried to speak, but his voice came out small. This is ridiculous. He was acting suspicious. The voice on the phone cut through, cold as steel. Officer Kessler, this is Colonel Isaac Warren, DoD OIG. You are not to speak to Agent Reed. You are to comply with supervisory instructions and remain on scene. Any attempt to disable recording devices or alter evidence will be treated as obstruction. Kessler's mouth hung open. His eyes darted to Morales' body cam, to Pike's cruiser, to his own. Pike's posture changed. His shoulders lowered. His authority, suddenly, was not his anymore. Dan, Pike said quietly, step back. Hands where I can see them. Kessler stared at him. Sarge, hands, Pike repeated, voice harder. Now. Kessler's hands rose slowly, not all the way, just enough to show compliance. His face twisted with humiliation. Marcus stood in the rain, wrists burning, watching the man who had enjoyed power minutes ago now meet the reality of a power he couldn't bully. Headlights flooded the scene again. Multiple vehicles this time. Tires hissed on wet asphalt. Doors slammed. Voices carried. The sound of organized response. State police cruisers, an internal affairs sedan. An unmarked federal SUV with black government plates. A tall woman in a dark suit stepped out of the federal SUV, hair pinned tight, face unreadable. She crossed the road with a badge held low but visible. Behind her, two uniformed troopers moved with quiet purpose, hands near their belts. She approached Marcus first. Agent Reed? Marcus nodded once. Yes, ma'am. She handed him a dry evidence bag and a small cloth. For your cuffs, Mars. Photographing will happen now. Are you injured? My wrists, Marcus said. No other injuries. She nodded, already moving. We're securing all recordings. Don't discuss details beyond basic timeline until we're in a controlled setting. Pike stepped forward, trying to speak. Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Pike. She looked at him without warmth. Sergeant, you will provide me with Officer Kessler's body cam and your dash cam. Immediately. Your officer's cameras are to remain on and untouched. You will not enter any vehicle without authorization. Pike swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Kessler stood frozen, rain dripping off his nose, eyes glassy with disbelief. A state police trooper approached him. Calm voice, firm posture. Officer Kessler, turn around. Hands behind your back. Kessler's head snapped up. What? I haven't. Turn around, the trooper repeated, louder. Kessler looked to Pike again, desperate. Pike didn't move. Morales didn't move. No one moved to help him. Kessler's face tightened. This is political. This is turn around, the trooper said, and this time his hand rested on his own cuffs. Kessler turned, slow, like his bones had become heavy. The trooper cuffed him, not tight, not cruel, just precise. Professional. The way it was supposed to be. Kessler flinched anyway. As the trooper guided him toward the cruiser, Kessler twisted his head toward Marcus, eyes wild. You set me up, he spat. You were waiting. Marcus didn't raise his voice. You didn't need a trap. Kessler's face contorted. You think you're better than me because you got some badge? You think. The trooper tightened his grip. Enough. Kessler was placed in the back seat of a state police cruiser. The door shut with a final heavy sound that swallowed his voice. Rain continued to fall, indifferent. Morales stood a few feet away, shoulders trembling with adrenaline she hadn't allowed herself to feel until now. She looked at Marcus, at the marks on his wrists, at the soaked veteran ID, at the calm in his eyes. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Marcus turned to her. His expression softened just a fraction, the tension in his jaw releasing. You did what you could, he said. Morales swallowed. I should have done more. Marcus glanced at the federal woman speaking to Pike, collecting devices, issuing orders. The system had arrived late but present. You did enough to keep it from becoming worse, Marcus said. That matters. Morales nodded slowly, eyes shining but controlled. She looked away before the emotion showed too much. The scene transformed into a crime scene without tape. Troopers photographed the cars, the trunk, the wet VA folder, the discarded items in the grass. Another agent approached Marcus with a small camera, taking close shots of his wrists, his face, the veteran ID. A paramedic unit arrived, lights flashing softly, checking Marcus's circulation. Marcus answered questions calmly, refusing dramatics, letting the evidence speak. Sergeant Pike stood under the rain like a man whose career was suddenly on trial too, watching his world rearrange itself by forces he didn't command. The federal woman turned to Morales. Officer Morales, you will provide a statement. Tonight, before you sleep, you will not discuss this with anyone else. Do you understand? Morales nodded. Yes, ma'am. Pike started to speak again, voice strained. Ma'am, She cut him off. Sergeant, your officer drew a firearm on a compliant driver, used demeaning language captured on multiple devices, accessed protected medical information without cause, and attempted coercive searches. That is not a single bad decision. That is a pattern. You will not manage this internally. Pike's face tightened, rain streaking down his cheeks like sweat. Understood. In the hours that followed, the highway stop became a case file with a chain of custody. Evidence bags, signed forms, audio timestamps, GPS coordinates, policy references, federal statutes, state statutes, civil rights violations. Kessler's gun was taken into evidence. His body cam and the cruiser dash cam were seized. His phone was collected. His previous stops were flagged for review. Marcus sat in the back seat of the federal SUV for warmth, a blanket over his shoulders, wrists wrapped with light gauze. He stared out at the rain and the lights, as if watching a storm pass through someone else's life. The calls went out. By dawn, the local chief was awakened by internal affairs, then by state police command, then by a federal liaison who didn't ask for time. They asked for cooperation. By noon, Kessler's name was on a suspension order. By evening, it was on an arrest affidavit. The footage clean, unfiltered, damning traveled through secure channels first. It didn't need editing to tell the story. A drawn gun in the first seconds. A compliant man in the rain. Mockery over medical paperwork. Racial language spoken with comfort. A threat whispered close enough for the microphone to catch. A supervisor's hesitation. A fellow officer's warning. A call answered on the first ring. Within 48 hours, the state attorney general's office announced an investigation into Cedar Ridge PD's traffic stop patterns. Civil rights groups requested records. Defense attorneys for prior cases filed motions. The department's stop and search statistics were pulled and compared names, dates, races, outcomes. Patterns emerged, like bruises under skin. Kessler wasn't the only file with stains. 1 week later, the courtroom was cold and bright, the air smelling faintly of disinfectant and old paper. The gallery was full of reporters, community members, officers in plain clothes, a few veterans in service caps. Marcus sat in the front row beside a federal attorney, posture straight, hands clasped loosely now that the bruises had faded into yellowed marks. His face held no triumph, only patience. Officer Daniel Kessler entered in a suit that didn't fit quite right, escorted by deputies. His eyes scanned the room like a man looking for allies and finding none. He avoided Marcus's gaze until the last second, then forced himself to look, as if staring could undo what had been recorded. The judge took the bench. The prosecutor stood, voice clear, laying out charges, aggravated civil rights violations, unlawful detention, unlawful search, tampering attempt noted by unusual gaps that were later recovered, misuse of protected health information, official oppression. Kessler's attorney tried to turn it into a misunderstanding. Claimed fear. Claimed officer safety. Claimed Marcus's tone was threatening. Then the prosecutor played the footage. The courtroom heard Kessler's voice in full. Not edited, not summarized, not softened. The words landed like blows. Kessler shifted in his seat as his own voice filled the room, confident in the rain, enjoying the power, making promises of violence with no cause. Morales testified next. She didn't embellish. She didn't posture. She spoke like an officer who had finally decided that the badge meant something, or it meant nothing. I told him to stop, she said. He didn't stop. The defense tried to shake her, asked about loyalty, about fear of discipline, about why she didn't physically intervene sooner. Morales held her ground. I was trying to prevent him from escalating, she said. And I was trying to survive the scene without adding another gun to it. The judge watched her closely. Expression unreadable. Sergeant Pike testified after that. He looked older than he had on the road. His voice was careful, regret threaded through it like a wire. He admitted he'd seen warning signs before. Complaints. Reports that didn't become cases. Stops that felt off. He admitted he hadn't moved fast enough. The prosecutor didn't gloat. He just let Pike speak, then asked one quiet question. Sergeant, if Agent Reed's identification hadn't forced your hand, would Officer Kessler have faced consequences that night? Pike's throat worked. He didn't answer immediately. Then, with the courtroom silent, he said, no. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. When Marcus took the stand, he didn't speak like a victim begging to be believed. He spoke like a man who had watched systems fail and learned how to force them to function. He described the stop in simple sentences. The gun, the cuffs, the folder, the whisper, the threat, the way the rain made everything feel smaller and more isolated, like the world had narrowed to one man's whim. The defense tried to make him angry, tried to pull emotion out like a confession. Marcus didn't give them that. He looked at the judge when he spoke, and his voice stayed steady. I have been trained to remain calm under threat, he said. But calm does not mean safe. Calm does not mean acceptable. If I had been anyone else, if I had not had the leverage I had, this could have ended with me dead on the roadside, and the report would have called it justified. Kessler stared at the table, jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped near his ear. When sentencing came weeks later, the courtroom filled again, heavier now with anticipation. Kessler stood at the defense table, hands clasped, eyes ringed with sleeplessness. The judge spoke slowly, each word deliberate, building a record that would outlast the room. You were entrusted with authority, the judge said. You used it to intimidate, demean, and threaten. You did not act out of split-second fear. You acted out of entitlement. You acted as if the uniform made you untouchable. Kessler's attorney whispered something. Kessler swallowed. The judge continued. This court has watched the footage. It does not show confusion. It shows enjoyment. Kessler's face tightened. The judge turned pages. You will serve a term of incarceration. You will be barred from law enforcement employment in this state. Your certification is revoked. You will be subject to federal supervision upon release. The civil rights violations you committed did not begin and end with one man. They represent a sickness that spreads when unchecked. The gavel struck once. Kessler's knees buckled slightly as deputies moved in, taking his arms. His eyes lifted, searching the room in one last reflex for sympathy. There was none. Outside, rain had finally stopped. The sky was clear and hard, winter light reflecting off wet pavement. A small crowd had gathered, quiet, not celebratory, but present. Veterans stood shoulder to shoulder with locals. Some held folded flags. Some held nothing at all. Marcus walked down the courthouse steps slowly, the air cold in his lungs, his coat dry now. Morales stood near the edge of the crowd, not in uniform, hands shoved into her pockets, posture tense. Their eyes met. Morales nodded once in apology, a promise, a recognition. Marcus nodded back. Behind them, the machinery continued. Investigations expanded. Old stops were reopened. 2 more officers resigned under scrutiny. An evidence clerk was questioned about missing footage. A deputy chief was placed on leave pending review of complaint handling. The department's policies were rewritten under state oversight, not as a public relations gesture, but under orders with deadlines and consequences. Cedar Ridge, a town that had treated certain roads like private territory, learned what it meant for accountability to arrive from outside and stay. That night, Marcus returned to Arlington. He parked a sedan under the glow of an apartment complex light, sat for a moment with the engine off, listening to the quiet. The bruises on his wrists ached when he flexed his hands. The ache wasn't just physical. It was a memory, layered of other men who didn't have an ID that could force his system to pay attention. He stepped out and looked up at the sky between buildings. No sirens, no flashing lights, just cold air and distance. Justice hadn't come because of luck. It hadn't come because of kindness. It had come because evidence existed, because someone on scene refused to look away, because the chain of power finally met a link it couldn't break. The road where Kessler had drawn his gun would still be there tomorrow, slick when it rained, lined with silent trees. But the illusion that anything could be done there without consequence was gone, and in that absence, where fear used to live there, was something steadier. Accountability, when it finally arrived, didn't shout. It didn't boast. It simply closed the door and made sure it could not be opened again.